our first question, and it relates to the takeaways from question number 2, where you talked about the importance of a culture of inclusivity and inclusion. But what happens when someone perhaps doesn't have a diversity and inclusion program within their organization and want to get more involved? Is there any tips or any best practices that our panel could share for how one could get started if there wasn't a D&I program within their organization currently?
Yeah, there are wonderful podcasts related to D&I, and you could just search diversity, and to me that it, even though you might not be interacting literally with the podcast, it does feel interactive. So it's always an opportunity to learn. For attorneys looking for CLE, there are always CLE opportunities. You can advocate within your organization to bring in speakers, and there are plenty of D&I consultants as well. And then part of, to me, of being an ally is to do homework in that regard. And so I would say oftentimes we rely on major networks and news outlets and books that are on the top 10 New York Times to get our information. Go with a different author. Just go outside of the comfort zone and just someone different. You could disagree with 85% of what they're saying, but just being open to hearing a different point of view.
Yeah, and also if you're like a lawyer, there's so many different groups that are associated with the Bar Association. So look into those options. I also think about the Human Rights Campaign. You can get involved there. And then harkening back to social media, that's gonna give you a lot of information on the right connections to make and how you can get involved in different areas. But locally, I like to look, based on just a Google search of, are there pro bono efforts that are underway that organizations that might need assistance, and you'll be shocked with how many lawyers will be there from other firms that you can liaise with or even network with to some extent, and they'll have a good then idea of what direction to point you in. But yeah, as a starting point, some of the bigger ones are like Human Rights Campaign, Family Equality Council is a good one, and there's so many other organizations to familiarize yourself with and become involved with and everything. So, and feel free to, I believe we have our names up there. So, feel free to add us as connections on LinkedIn and reach out, and we'd be happy to help point you in a direction.
Thank you both so much. I think you may have answered the next 2 questions just in the answer to that question there. The first part of the question was just asking where one could perhaps find a D&I mentor outside of one's organization and where the best place to find those would be. But then the other part of the question was about those pro bono opportunities. Is Google the best source to find more about D&I pro bono opportunities, or are there any other resources out there? Like I said, I think you may have tackled both of those questions there, but is there anything else you would like to add for those 2?
So I do think, as Kristi suggested, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to provide probably some more personalized resources that are local. So if we had that local information, we could probably, give you that information. But in the legal industry, a couple other organizations that help kind of from a legal standpoint is LCLD, Legal Counsel on Legal Diversity, and MCCA, Minority Corporate Counsel Association. There are many other affinity bar organizations. It goes on forever, as well as pro bono opportunities in communities. And so probably give you a more localized approach. I think the other piece is to find your passion. You can't be all things to all people at all times. I recommend that you find your passion of what moves you, and that's where you can make the most difference.
100%. Yeah. And then also clinics, legal services clinics, looking at law schools and such. There's a lot of different areas, like maybe you're a law school student right now. a lot of clinics that are specific to diversity and inclusion issues, not issues, sorry. Now I'm going to have to get out of the habit of saying issues, but that focus on diversity and inclusion, and service those needs. And so that's a great resource, as well as locally you should have most likely several options depending on what area you want to go into. And so that bar association is always a really good resource too.